Hey traders, what's happening? Jamie Sally here. It is July 22nd, 2020. And today we are going to talk about dollar sentiment. So, unless you've been sleeping under a rock, the dollar has fallen. I think DXY is down maybe close to 7% from the March high. Doesn't sound like a ton when you consider, other markets. But in FX, that's a pretty good move, especially in today's low vol world. So it's gotten to the point where I would characterize sentiment, near-term sentiment, as being fairly extreme, and markets tend to turn when sentiment's extreme. Okay, irrespective of the broader trend of what's happening, this is a place for a bounce in the dollar. Okay, in 2008, I wrote a book called Sentiment in the Forex Market. There's a chapter on the types of language and imagery that is used near that denotes a sentiment extreme. We are certainly seeing that right now. So yesterday, I usually keep Bloomberg on during the day, and you have those headlines that scroll on the right side of the screen. They're the same headlines that you'll see like on the Bloomberg app, right? And most of the time, it's just a story, doesn't mean a whole lot, but every once in a while, a headline will pop up, which makes me say, oh, huh, that seems a little crowded. Well, this was one. So yesterday, when real rates fall, buy it all except the dollar, right? That is not the type of headline that you would see typically right before, a dollar downdraft. In other words, the dollar has been going down, and you get, what I would characterize as a somewhat extreme, um, headline. Just everything's going up except for the dollar, right? Then today, I also noticed this one. This is from Market Watch, and the headline there was something like this. What did it say? It said the US dollar is getting punched in the mouth, and its outlook amid coronavirus doesn't look great, some experts say. So that headline I would characterize as having two things in it that I look for in extreme sentiment or or extreme language. One is getting punched in the mouth. So, it's being um, explained in an active manner, right? And two, its outlook doesn't look great, right? So that is probably one of the strongest things you can look for in sentiment in a sentiment extreme is once there's a prediction of sorts in the headline. That means from a sentiment point of view that the trend is at this point is so obvious and so embedded that it's the writer of the story or forecasters alike or whatever are very comfortable in their outlook in extrapolating the trend. Okay, and if they're that comfortable, then the idea is that it's been played out. Everyone's already in, right? So what is there left to continue it in that direction? Typically, that will lead to a reaction in the other direction. So now let's go to the chart. We're going to look at DXY first. A couple things here. One, if you take the leg here, the initial leg off the top in March, which was very sharp, right? All those V bottoms that we had in Kiwi and Aussie especially. And then, take that measurement and extend it from this most recent high here in June, the end of June. These relate by 0.618. So that's a good relationship. If this were like a 1, 2, some sort of a combobulated 2, a 3, 4, 5, right? Wave 5 equals 0.618 of wave 1. And in the case of an extreme first leg, that would be a common relationship. Okay. 2, move to this chart just because it's a bit cleaner. If we draw a simple channel from the 2016 high, right? The March high here is your second high. Today we hit the first or the center line of that for the first time. This does not count because this was before you could have drawn that line, okay? Typically the first touch of the center line or the median line in a structure does engender some sort of a reaction in the opposite direction, all right? This would be what I call now this channel is confirmed, okay? And at some point in the future, if we do bounce, we'll probably find resistance somewhere on a parallel within this structure. It might be off of this high, it might be off of these lows, it could be this 25 line here, which is halfway between the upper parallel and the center line. Bottom line is we also have a level. Finally, and probably most importantly, frankly, is the fact that 95 here, I have 95 drawn across the chart here on this dark magenta line, bold magenta line. 95 is pretty darn important. It has been for years. During the dollar rip-roaring days of 2015, generally speaking, that was the first area where we kind of pulled back and consolidated. You can see the big final leg up here, starting in September 2016, was from that 95. Big resistance here, October 2017. Resistance here in May of 18. Support here, right, October 2018. And finally, it was support again in March. So we're right there. All right, so we've got sentiment levels, et cetera, pattern, Fibonacci relationships, all that stuff. All right, now let's take a look at Euro, which is more or less the opposite of DXY. A couple things here. I think this is actually the best count at this point. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, something of a wedge. It's not really a wedge because it doesn't overlap. At least in Elliott, you would want to see overlapping waves between 1 and 4 to call it what we call a leading diagonal. That's not there. A couple other things in terms of market levels. So we took out the Jan 2019 high today, taking out a big level. Typically, you'll see a reaction in the opposite direction. That's also about the same level, by the way, as this November 2017 low. And finally, I know it's not a fib, but it is a point of reference, 50% retrace, or the midpoint between the Feb 2018 high and the March 2020 low. All right, we've hit that today, which is like 116. Also, we did trade 116.02 today, taking out a big round number. Again, not uncommon to take out a big round number and then just kind of get a reaction in the opposite direction. So this actually is not really a short for me, Euro here. I don't have a quote unquote signal yet. I will monitor it. There are some other trades that I'm tracking or for potential entries, which are better, I think, to look at dollar longs. I would look at dollar yen, actually. It looks pretty good on the long side. Not going to go into that right here. But yeah, I'll track this and see if we get any sort of near-term pattern to trade from on the downside. There are good high volume levels as well to follow that I will be talking about in my report later, but those are always good for points of reference. But the point of this video is just to show the sentiment, right? How I look at sentiment. Keep your eyes open on the news headlines, kind of how I read news. And also the charts and the levels and all that stuff are there for, a good reaction in the opposite direction in the dollar generally. All right, so that's it. Thank you for watching and take care. Jamie Setley here signing off. All right, bye.